The envelope arrived without a stamp, as if it had found its own way. My name, Ariadne Cole, was written in an exacting copperplate that belonged to a century with stricter posture. Inside, a skeleton key racked in oilcloth, a charcoal rubbing of an iron gate crowned with thorns, and 6 words in a fine, unforgiving hand. Come to Blackthorn. Bring your dead. I am a private investigator by trade, more comfortable with invoices than invocations. But I also collect unsolved vanishings the way other people collect ticket stubs. A sister gone between stations. A pianist who stepped from a stage into nowhere. 5 children who followed a light into a field and were not counted at morning. Blackthorn was whispered in 3 of those files, always like a cough someone tried to hide. On the key's bow, scratched thin as veins, a word: remember. I booked a night train to the coast. In my carry-on, a notebook, a camera that clicks too loudly, a flask of courage, and a lock of my brother's hair sealed in glass. The only relic I own of a boy named Theo, who vanished on a January afternoon when I was 15 and he was 13, and the sun pretended to be warm. When I do not know what to do, I go toward the worst address. Blackthorn House was the worst address I had. At dawn, the taxi set me down at the head of a drive, guarded by ironwork that looked grown rather than forged. The letters Blackthorn arched above, strangled in actual thorn. Beyond, the world narrowed into a tunnel of yews. Fog lay in the hollows like breath that had no owner. The house revealed itself slowly. 3 stories of Victorian suspicion, its roofline crowded with chimneys like accusing fingers. A central tower held a clock whose hands had refused a century. The windows were tall and watchful. The stone wore watermarks as if grief had overflown at the same height for years. The front door opened before I knocked. Miss Cole? The woman in the vestibule wore black without apology, and an expression that suggested she had no patience for the sentimental. I am Mrs. Penhaligon. You were expected. By whom? I asked. By the house, she said, as if that explained everything. And by him. Who is he? You will meet him at dinner, she said. Blackthorn is old-fashioned about hierarchy. I stepped into a hall that smelled of beeswax and rain caught in linen. Portraits watched me. Thin men with the thick look of inheritance, women with mouths that had learned silence as etiquette. On a table, a neat array of objects rested in a velvet tray, like surgical instruments for a peculiar operation. 4 iron keys on rings, each tagged with a room name in faded ink. Observatory. Music room, nursery, archive, a small brass compass that pointed nowhere, and a handful of cards, each embossed with a sigil. A gate, a stair, a thorn, a bell. For me? I asked. For the work, Mrs. Penhaligon said. Blackthorn has a way for everything. What work is that? To find what is missing, she said, the ghost of surprise in her face that I had to ask. This house keeps its dead. It also misplaces them. Before I could answer, a sound passed through the hall. Not a creak. A memory of a piano resolving a chord it hadn't yet played. The air cooled. Rooms shift after dusk, Mrs. Penhaligon said briskly. Keep to the lit corridors. If a door shows you a hallway you don't recognize, return the way you came. If the stair counts in 13s, wait until it forgets how. What about the keys? I lifted the ring labeled archive. Use the right key for the wrong lock, she said. Blackthorn respects wit. And if I use the wrong key? She smiled without warmth. Blackthorn respects rules. Something moved at the far end of the hall. Not a person. An angle changed. A corner deepened, as if geometry remembered a different childhood. Mrs. Penhaligon saw my stare and nodded once. You're in time for neep. The house is thinnest on low weeks. You said I was expected, I said. By him. Mr. Halberd, she said, as if the name had mass. The present owner. He keeps a curated relationship with the truth. That must be exhausting for the staff, she said. For the house, it is sport. She left me with a room at the second landing. A bed dressed as if linen could be a shield. A writing desk that seemed to want to be trusted. A window onto the east lawn, where fog and tame deer held a standoff. On the mantel, a card waited, embossed with a bell. On its reverse, in that exacting hand. Dinner at 8. Bring your dead. I set Theo's locket on the desk. The chain made a sound like a decision. Dinner was a theater. A long table, a small number of players. Mr. Halberd sat at the head, handsome in the way of men who have never needed to be kind. His smile said, "Show me your tricks." At his right, a quiet woman in a gray dress whose name I was not given. At his left, a chair set and empty. "Miss Cole," he said, lifting his glass, "I ordered you the haddock. It's what the house prefers." "Does the house eat?" I asked. "The house eats time," he said. "The way men say things when they intend to be quoted. And sometimes people who try to steal it." "You wrote to me," I said. "I sent a key," he corrected. "Blackthorn writes its own invitations." "What do you want me to find?" "An answer," he said. "Isn't that always the product you sell?" "I sell closure," I said. "Answers are a perk." His smile widened a degree. 3 families have sued me in the last 5 years. In each case, a relation disappeared on my grounds. In each case, there is no footage, no witness, no plausible route to the road. Doors were locked, windows were latched. The only variable was the hour. "When?" "Between 11 and midnight," he said. "When the house turns its head." "And you?" I asked. "Why keep living here?" "Because I am a Halberd," he said simply. "This house is ours, as long as it lets us pretend that's true. Also because I am compiling a record." "A record of what?" "The missing," he said. "Not just from Blackthorn, from everywhere that matters." He rose, crossed to a sideboard, and returned with a leather folio. Inside, catalog cards, thousands, handwritten in the same precise script as the note that brought me here. Each card bore a name, an age, a date, a place last seen, and a final line. He let me read one. "Cole, Theophilus, Deanished, January 17th, 2006. Last seen, Jubilee Gardens, 3:41 p.m. Final line, looked back only once. The air left me. How do you have this? I collect, he said. Blackthorn collects. We share habits. Where did you get his file? The house gave it to me. He must have seen violence pass over my face, because his tone gentled. I intend you no harm, Miss Cole. The opposite. You have a talent the house respects. You keep walking. I hired you to walk where my men won't. Where is that? The archive, he said, and the capital letter was audible. It keeps copies of things reality misplaces. It's also where the house files what it intends to forget later. And why would the house intend to forget? Because remembering carries a tax, he said, even for houses. He slid a key across the table. Iron, older than rules, tag-stained but legible. Archive, down at midnight, he said. Up by 1. Stay on the black tiles. Step only when the lights are out. If you hear a child counting, count with them. If the bell rings, and it will, say "not for me" until it stops. Bring me what you can carry. Leave what begs. What begs? You'll know it, he said. It will use your voice. The empty chair at his left pulled itself closer to the table. With a scrape, I felt behind my teeth. Who sits there? I asked. My wife, he said, when she remembers. We did not speak over the haddock. The house listened to us chew. If libraries are churches, then Blackthorn's archive is a graveyard with liturgical ambitions. Midnight found me at a door that had not been there at 11. Oak banded in iron, a keyhole that disapproved of me. The archive key turned, as if deciding not to bite. Cold rolled out like smoke. Inside, black and white tiles, laid in a pattern that reconfigured itself if glanced at sideways. The lights were motionless globes, suspended on chains, gleaming, whether awake or dead. And every 30 feet, one clouded and one cleared, so that the aisle strobed gently from scene to unseen. Each time a globe went dark, the tiles ahead corrected their arrangement. Stay on the black tiles, I recited, stepping when the light died. Shelves rose into shadow. On them, boxes with catalog numbers, metal trays slid home, drawers with brass pulls that asked politely not to be touched. Here and there, a compartment stood ajar. In the nearest, a stack of lost pages, the missing chapter from a memoir that had shattered a family. A ledger leaf where a signature had been excised with care. The last sheet of an apology never posted. In another, rows of spare photographs. In each, a story waiting to be told. One figure had been cut out of the original print and filed separately under "Witness Removed." The empty spaces in the photos did not feel empty at all. They felt like someone holding a breath. The bell rang. Not a chime, an industrial note, a ship calling another ship across night. It vibrated the cartilage in my nose. Not for me, I said, because obedience is also a kind of courage. Not for me, not for me. The air relaxed, the sound passed on. The way death walks down a corridor and chooses another door. I moved when the light went out. The tiles led me to a cabinet that was not labeled in any alphabet I knew. On its face, a brass plate engraved with a sigil, a gate tangled in thorns. My fingers knew the shape. The rubbing from the letter matched. Inside the cabinet, one drawer, only one, stood awaiting. On its pull, a tag, Cole, Theophilus, J1706, Jubilee. I touched the tag with the back of my fingers as if the metal might misinterpret intention. Then I pulled. Not paper, not a lock of hair that lay on my desk upstairs, not a toy or a shoe. The drawer held a sound. It rose like mist as soon as the drawer met air. A boy, laughing breathless in cold. A laugh I had catalogued, lost, begged the air to keep. Under the laugh, a man said, "Don't run ahead." And a woman said, "Hold hands." And my own voice said, "Theo?" The sound threaded itself through me and tethered me to every winter I had outlived. Something in the aisle whispered, "Leave it." "No," I said. "Not for me," the aisle said back, helpfully, having learned one trick. I took the sound and cupped it like water. It weighed no more than forgiveness. I set it gently into my coat, where my sternum could guard it. Far off, a child began to count. 1, 2, 3, not threatening, patient. The lights along the aisle went out and stayed out, just for a breath longer than before. "Count with them," Mr. Halbert had said. 4, I said, walking. 5, the child said, pleased. 6, I said. On 7, the aisles shifted. Shelves turned their shoulders. The tiles beneath my feet remembered a pattern that would put my next step onto white. I waited. When the black returned, I stepped and found a different aisle entirely. At its end, a narrow door stood ajar. Behind it, a corridor with peeling nursery wallpaper, blue lambs in a field of too green grass, and light that hadn't chosen a temperature yet. I should have turned back. I went in. The nursery smelled like clean dust and a kind of vanilla that had nothing to do with baking. 3 cots waited with the patience of furniture that have not forgiven. In a toy chest, a wooden train had arranged itself into a track that looped without closing. The room's window showed a moon too full for the calendar, low and promiscuous. It felt like looking into a pupil. On the far wall, a height chart held names and dates, each line written by an adult hand that wanted to believe in measurement. Below, in pencil, a child had written in laborious block letters, "We grew sideways. A rocking horse rocked twice and then decided not to be coy." "Hello," said a voice from under a cot, not threatening, young and bored. "Are you the finder?" "I'm Ariadne," I said. "I'm looking for someone." "Everyone is," the voice said. "That's why the house likes visitors. They bring their wanting." A face appeared. A girl of 8 or 9, hair in 2 imperfect plaits, eyes that had already learned 2 languages, the one adults speak and the one they mean. She sat up, legs folded crisscross, and regarded me like a librarian assessing a late return. "What do you want found?" she asked. "My brother," I said. "Theo." She made a shape with her mouth that wasn't quite pity. "Lots of Theos," she said. "This house keeps names like pennies. Do you have one?" I reached into my pocket and brought out the locket out of reflex, as if the house might need proof of my belonging. "His hair." The girl shook her head. "We don't trade in hair. We trade in seconds. Did you bring any?" I thought of the sound in my coat. A boy's winter laugh. The weight of it created a weather system in my chest. "I brought one," I said. "You shouldn't have," she said, perfectly kind. "Now you'll owe. The archive keeps ledgers." "I'll owe anyway," I said. The girl considered me and then pointed at the window. The moon had lowered until it nearly sat on the sill. "When the clock in the tower forgets to tick, the moon comes visit," she said. "That's when the house moves its rooms around, so the sad people can get lost." "Do you get lost?" "Only when I want to," she said. "I'm the one who counts. You're the child in the archive." "I'm the head counter," she said, with the solemn importance of a job title earned. When the house loses someone, I keep track. When it wants to give one back, I make sure the numbers don't lie. Does it want to give one back now? She put her head to one side, as if a bell vibrated inside it only she could hear. Maybe. What does it want in return? Her eyes flicked to my coat. A second it took, or a second you wish it had. The difference? She smiled with teeth she would grow into. Grown-ups always think there is one. She slid from under the cot, padded to the door, and opened it onto a staircase that had not existed a moment before. It smelled of cold and the damp wool of coats that had seen weather. From below, a man's voice drifted up, not quite singing. A note Theo used to hum when he thought no one noticed. The sound of a thought turning. "Count with me," she said, taking my hand. "If you stop, the stairs forget." We went down into a throat of house. We counted. The moon pressed its eye to the stairwell and blinked enormous. At 12, the stairs tried to be clever and inserted a 13. The girl squeezed my hand. "No, no," I repeated, and 13 learned shame. At the bottom, a door waited. A simple painted door, its knob slick with many hands. On its surface, written small and neat in pencil, a line I recognized from a catalog card. Looked back only once. The girl let go of me. "This is as far as I go," she said. "Find what you can carry. Leave what begs." "What will beg?" "You," she said softly. The door unlatched without my touch. Air came through as if from a place that had not yet decided to be outside. I thought of the archive's ledgers, of the sound in my coat, of Mr. Halberd's games, of Mrs. Penhaligon's rules, of the way my brother's name felt behind my teeth when I said it without saying it. Then I went in. The door closed behind me with a sigh. The kind that means you chose this. The room beyond was not a room, but a collection of moments. They hovered in the air like dust motes, tiny spheres of light pulsing faintly, some white, some gold, some the bruised violet of a memory that no longer fits the present. Each sphere whispered. Some murmured laughter. Some wept. Others hummed fragments of lullabies. And in the center of the chamber stood a man. Or what had been a man. His suit was impeccable, his shoes polished, but his body flickered at the edges, as if only mostly here. He was sorting the spheres into shelves that stretched into forever. "Excuse me," I said. He didn't turn. "You're late." "For what?" "For the exchange." He plucked a sphere from the air and held it up. Inside it, a child was blowing out birthday candles. "You've brought one, haven't you?" I reached into my coat and drew out Theo's laugh. It trembled in my palm, warm and alive. "Ah," the man sighed. "A sibling second. Rare. Precious." "Where is he?" My voice cracked on the question. "Where's Theo?" The man finally looked at me. His face was kind and terrible, like a judge who has heard every excuse in the world. "Here," he said, and gestured around the room. "Pieces of him, anyway. Pieces the house decided to keep. I want them back." "You can't have them all," he said. "Time is never returned whole. You may choose 1 second, just one, to reclaim. But for each second you take, you must leave one of your own." I stared at the countless lights, all the stolen moments that didn't belong to me. How many of Theo's were trapped here? How many of mine? "Choose," the man said gently. before the house changes its mind. I moved among the orbs, heart pounding. Each was a window into a stolen heartbeat of someone's life. Here, Theo laughing, racing ahead of me through the park. There, the two of us building a fort out of bedsheets. Another, him turning back just once before stepping into the light that swallowed him. I reached for that one, the last second before he disappeared. But the archivist stopped me. "Not that one," he said. "That second belongs to the house. It's the key that keeps the door closed." "Then I'll take his laugh," I whispered. He nodded. "And what will you leave?" I hesitated, and then I knew. I reached into my own chest and pulled free a second I'd carried for 20 years. The moment I turned around at the park and realized Theo was gone. The scream that tore from my throat, the horror that never stopped echoing. I left that moment behind. The room shifted. The walls rippled like disturbed water, and when I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in the chamber. I was standing in Halbode's study. "Ah," he said, without looking up from the leather ledger on his desk. "You went deeper than I expected." "What is this?" I demanded. "What is Blackthorn?" Halbode closed the book, slowly. "A ledger, a bank, a prison, a bridge. Call it what you like. Blackthorn collects time, the seconds people lose when they vanish. That's why they disappear. They don't die, they're archived. Why? Because the universe hates waste," he said, "and time is the rarest resource of all." I slammed my hands on the desk. "And Theo? Where is he now?" "Closer than you think," Halbode said, eyes gleaming. "But to reach him, you'll need to open the gate." The gate was not a door. It was a choice. It waited at the end of a long, spiral staircase beneath the house, carved from stone so old it had forgotten its own name. Runes flickered faintly along the walls. The air was heavy, not stale, but full, like a room packed with invisible bodies. At the bottom, an archway of black iron overgrown with thorny vines. In the center, a faint shimmer, as if the air itself were sealed shut. "This is where the lost go," Mrs. Penhaligon said. She had appeared silently beside me, holding a lantern. "It only opens for those who belong on the other side." "How do I make it open?" She tilted the lantern toward my chest. "You don't. It opens when you stop trying to leave." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, "that if you go through, you may not come back. The house takes what belongs to it, and sometimes that's you." Behind the gate, I could hear footsteps. Light, quick, familiar. Theo's. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The air thickened around me as I crossed the threshold. It felt like walking through memory itself. My skin buzzed. My breath caught. The other side of the gate was not a room. It was a mirror, a perfect copy of Blackthorn, but younger. The paint was new, the halls clean, the clock ticking. And down the corridor, I saw him, Theo. He turned, smiling, as if no time had passed. "Ari?" I ran. "Theo! Oh my God, Theo!" We collided in an embrace that felt like waking from a nightmare. He was real, warm, alive. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. But then the bell rang. It was louder here, deafening, endless. It shook the floor, the walls, me. Theo clutched his head. "It's calling you back," he gasped. "It won't let you stay." "No," I said. "I'm not leaving you again." The archivist's voice echoed from everywhere. A second was returned. A second was taken. Balance must be kept. Then take me, I shouted. Take all my seconds. Theo's eyes widened. Ari, don't. The bell stopped. The world went silent, and the gate, once a barrier, now swung open in both directions. I awoke on the front lawn of Blackthorn House, the morning sun painting the windows gold. The building looked smaller now, less like a monster and more like a memory. Theo sat beside me, older, taller, but still him. We made it out, he said softly. I touched his face, barely believing it. We did. Behind us, the house groaned, not in anger, but in relief. Its doors closed gently, and the iron gates sealed with a click. The wind carried a single whisper through the trees. Looked back only once. Years later, people would still whisper about Blackthorn House, about the disappearances, the strange lights, the impossible time slips. But no one would ever find it again. The road beyond the gate had vanished. And sometimes, late at night, when Theo and I sit together and watch the stars, we both hear a distant bell, and we both remember to whisper, "Not for me."